The blacksmith's
Hey,
courage.
don't you walk away from
Complete
me.
story.
What do you want?
There are moments
We
in
need to
life that
talk,
divide your
now.
world
Fine,
into
make it
before and
quick.
after. Moments that arrive so quietly you don't realize they're happening until it's too late to stop them. For Vera Ironheart, that moment came on a Tuesday morning in the Cider Falls marketplace, delivered by her 5-year-old daughter's voice, cutting through the crowd like a bell nobody asked to be rung. The morning had started ordinary enough. Cool October air, the kind that smells like pine and promises rain by evening. Vera had woken at 5, same as always, fed the forge, checked the coals, started the fire that would burn until dusk. By 6, she was working. Her hammer struck hot iron in steady rhythm. Strike, turn, strike, turn, each blow precise, each angle calculated. This was how you made things that lasted, through repetition, through care, through the understanding that good work was never rushed. Ember slept upstairs in the room above the forge. The building sat at the eastern edge of Cedar Falls where the paved streets turned to dirt roads. Neither exile nor welcome. The kind of location reserved for people the town needed but didn't particularly want to see. The forge had been abandoned for 8 years before Vera claimed it. Nobody wanted a building where the previous owner had died. Humans had strange superstitions about such things. But Vera didn't believe in ghosts. She believed in solid walls, a good chimney, space enough to raise a child and build a life. That had been 6 years ago. 6 years of keeping her head down, her hammer swinging, her daughter close. The war had ended 12 years back. The peace treaty said orcs could live in human settlements if they followed the rules. Vera followed every rule with the dedication of someone who knew that one mistake could cost everything. She was the only blacksmith in the Eastern Quarter. People brought their broken tools, their bent hinges, their cracked wagon wheels. They paid fair prices. They didn't spit. That was about as good as it got. This morning, Vera was finishing a set of horseshoes for the Miller farm. The iron glowed orange in the forge fire. She pulled it out with tongs, placed it on the anvil. Metal rang under her hammer. Once. Twice. The steel bent to her will, shaping itself into the curve that would protect a working horse's hoof through another hard winter. Sweat ran down her back despite the cool air. Her hands were callous thick from years of this work. Her forearms showed the small scars every blacksmith carried. Burns from stray sparks, nicks from sharp edges. The price of the trade. But her work was flawless. Everyone knew it. Even the people who wouldn't meet her eyes in the street knew it. Upstairs, she heard Ember wake. The soft pad of small feet on wooden floors. Then the girl's voice singing something about clouds and dragons. Always singing. Always inventing songs nobody else would ever hear. Vera smiled despite herself, set the horseshoe aside to cool, washed her hands in the basin, headed upstairs. Ember sat on her bed, tangled in blanket's hair, wild from sleep, green skin like her mother's. But her eyes were gray soft as morning fog. She'd inherited those from her father, whoever he'd been. Vera didn't talk about that. Some stories were better left in the past. Morning little flame, Vera said. Mama, I had a dream about a dragon who made friends with a mouse. That's so. The dragon was lonely because everyone was scared of him, but the mouse wasn't scared. She just climbed right up and sat on his nose. Vera sat on the edge of the bed, started working her fingers through Ember's thick black hair. What happened then? They became best friends, and the dragon learned that being big and scary doesn't mean you can't be gentle. Smart dragon, Vera said quietly. Smart mouse, Ember corrected. She braided her daughter's hair the way her own mother had braided hers back before the war. Before everything changed, the motions were automatic now, soothing, a small ritual that anchored the start of each day. Why don't humans have tusks, Mama? Because they're built different. But why? Same reason birds don't have arms. Different doesn't need a why. It just is. Ember considered this with the gravity of a scholar contemplating the universe. If they don't have tusks, how do they eat tough meat? They cut it smaller. That seems like a lot of extra work. Probably why they invented knives. We invented knives too. We invented knives to fight. They invented knives to eat. Different purposes. Oh. Ember nodded as if this explained every mystery of the world. This was their routine. Vera would work the forge from dawn until dusk. Ember would play in the courtyard building elaborate cities out of scrap metal and talking to herself in voices that represented entire populations. On market days, Ember would come along, holding tight to Vera's hand, her gray eyes wide as coins as she absorbed every sight and sound. Today was market day. Vera dressed carefully, clean tunic, her best vest. She braided her own hair, tucking it back so it wouldn't fall on her face. Not that it mattered. She could dress like royalty, and people would still see Orc first. Woman second, person never. But she tried anyway, because giving up meant admitting defeat, and Vera Ironheart didn't know how to quit. They walked the dirt road into town. Ember skipped ahead, then circled back, then ran forward again. Endless energy, the kind only children possessed. The marketplace sat in the center of Cedar Falls, built around an old stone fountain that hadn't worked properly in 30 years. Stalls formed rough circles, farmers selling vegetables, Hilda with her bread and pastries, the butcher, the rope maker, the spice merchant, and someone new. Vera noticed him the way you notice a chair move 3 inches to the left. You can't quite say what's different, but something is. He'd set up near the fountain, prime location. That meant he'd either paid well or knew someone important. His cart was painted deep blue with gold leastering. Callum's traveling goods, spices, silks, and stories from distant shores. The stories part was unusual. Most merchants didn't advertise that. Vera watched him for 3 weeks before he noticed her watching. She was good at being invisible when she wanted to be, blending into backgrounds, making herself small. He was tall for a human, brown hair that curled at the ends with opinions about staying flat, a beard trimmed neat, green vest over cream shirt, well-made but not fancy. The clothes of someone who had money but didn't need you to know about it. What struck Vera most was how he looked at people. Not through them, not past them, at them. Direct eye contact, genuine smile. The kind of attention that made you feel seen. She watched how he handled his wares. Careful hands, respectful of the goods. He talked to customers like they mattered. Listened when they spoke. Laughed at bad jokes. A boy worked the stall with them. Gangly, 13, maybe 14, hay-colored hair and nervous hands that kept going to his pocket. The kid's name was Rowan. Vera had heard him called once when he'd wandered past the forge asking about rocks. On the 4th Tuesday, Ember noticed the merchant first. "Mama, that man has purple fabric," she announced, tugging Vera's hand. "I've never seen purple fabric before." "That's because purple cost more than our forge. Can we look? We're here for nails and bread, not purple fabric." But looking is free. This was a trap, Vera knew it, but Ember had a way of making traps seem reasonable. Before Vera could construct a proper argument, they were standing in front of the merchant's stall. Up close, the fabrics were remarkable. Silks that shifted color depending on how the light hit them. Spices in small jars that smelled like places Vera had never been and probably never would be. Carved wooden boxes with tiny drawers that clicked shut with satisfying precision. "Good morning," the merchant said. His voice matched his eyes, warm, genuine. Then he looked down. "And who's this?" "I'm Ember," the girl announced before Vera could stop her. "I'm 5 and I live in the forge and I like purple." "Ember," Vera said quietly, "we should—" "5 is an excellent age," the merchant interrupted, still smiling at Ember. "Old enough to have opinions, young enough to change them. And purple is a very sophisticated choice." He pulled out a small square of purple silk, barely bigger than his palm. "This one's from the Eastern Kingdoms. They use a special snail to make the dye. Takes about 10,000 snails to make enough for one dress." Ember's eyes went wide. 10,000? Give it or take. That's so many snails. "It really is. Makes you appreciate purple more, doesn't it? Knowing how many snails died for it." "Did they die on purpose?" "I don't think snails have strong feelings about purpose, but they definitely died." Ember giggled, the kind of delighted giggle that meant she'd just decided this human was fun. A knot formed in Vera's stomach. "We should go," she said, firmer this time. The merchant looked up, really looked, met her eyes with that same direct attention he gave everyone else. Vera braced herself for the moment when his expression would change. When he noticed the green skin, the slightly pointed ears, the small tusks visible when she spoke, when friendliness would frost over into politeness. Or worse, barely concealed discomfort. The moment never came. "I'm Callum," he said, extending a hand. "Just set up shop last month. Still learning who's who around here." Vera stared at the hand. Humans didn't usually offer to shake hands with orcs. Physical contact was complicated. Politically acceptable, but socially suspect. She took it. His grip was firm, warm, lasted exactly 2 seconds before releasing. "Vera," she said, "I run the forge in the East Quarter. The blacksmith, I've heard about you. Rowan says you're the only one in town who can properly balance an axe head. Rowan's the boy with the collection. Rocks, acorns, interesting buttons, bits of string he finds significant." "Yes, that's Rowan. He brought me a broken knife 3 weeks ago, asked if I could fix it, and also if I thought rocks had feelings." Callum laughed, a genuine belly laugh that made Ember laugh too. "What did you tell him?" "That I could fix the knife. The rocks would have to speak for themselves." Diplomatic. I appreciate that in a blacksmith. There was a pause, not an awkward one, just a pause. The kind where both people are deciding if this conversation ends here or continues. Ember decided for them. "Can I touch the purple?" she asked. "Ember," Vera started. "Of course," Callum said, holding out the silk square. "Careful, though, it's delicate." Ember touched it with the reverence usually reserved for baby birds and sleeping cats. Her small green fingers traced the edge of the fabric. Her face split into the widest smile Vera had seen in weeks. "It's soft like clouds," Ember whispered. "I've never touched a cloud," Callum said seriously. "But I'll take your word for it. Mama feel it." "Ember, we need to please," Vera sighed. Picked up the silk. It was son possibly swapping like touching water if water could be held. "Beautiful work," she said. "Because it was. And lying wouldn't change that." "Thank you, though I can't take credit. I just transport it. The real artists are the weavers." Callum paused. "You know I've been meaning to visit the forge. I need some custom hooks made for the cart. Would you have time this week?" This was the moment where things could have gone differently. Where Vera could have said she was busy, that she didn't take custom orders, any of a dozen polite deflections that would have kept the wall exactly where it was. Instead, she said Thursday afternoon, after the heat of the day breaks. "Perfect. I'll see you then." They left. Ember skipped the whole way home humming a song about purple snails. Vera said nothing, but her chest felt lighter. Something between dread and possibility, the faintest echo of it. Thursday came. Callum arrived exactly when he said he would, which was notable. Humans in Vera's experience operated on flexible definitions of time. He brought Rowan with him. The boy carried a leather satchel that clinked with every step. 6 hooks, Callum explained, showing Vera a rough sketch. "Need them to hold about 20 pounds each. The cart's heavier than it looks. Iron or steel?" "Which is stronger?" "Steel, but costs more." "Steel, then. This cart's my livelihood. Worth doing right." Vera nodded, quoted him a price that was fair but not discounted. He agreed without haggling. They shook on it. Done. Except it wasn't, because Callum didn't leave. Instead, he stood in the doorway of the forge, watching Vera work with the kind of fascination usually reserved for street magicians or exotic animals. "You can sit," Vera said after 10 minutes of feeling his eyes on her. "There's a bench." "I don't want to intrude." "You're already intruding. Sitting won't make it worse." He sat. Rowan sat next to him, pulling out a rock to examine while casting curious glances at Ember. The girl was building something elaborate in the corner with scrap metal and string. "What are you making?" Rowan asked eventually. "A dragon," Ember said, as if this were obvious. "But the wings are hard. Wings need to be balanced or they don't work. Dragons aren't real, though. So houses aren't real until someone builds them. Same with dragons." Rowan had no argument for this logic. He offered her one of his rocks. "For good luck." "Do I give it back after?" "No, it's a gift." "Then thank you." Ember tucked the rock into her pocket with the solemnity of someone accepting a great treasure. Callum watched this exchange with the faintest smile. "You're raising a philosopher," he said. "I'm raising someone who asks too many questions," Vera corrected. "Steel bent under precise blows." Best kind of person to raise, says the man who doesn't have to answer them. Fair point. They lapsed into comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need filling. Vera worked. Callum watched. Rowan and Ember negotiated the terms of dragon construction in the corner. The forge fire roared, metal glowed and bent. Sparks flew in brief arcs before dying on the stone floor. Vera's hands moved with practiced certainty, measuring angles by eye, testing weight by feel. This was knowledge that lived in muscle memory, in calluses, in scars. "Can I ask you something?" Callum said eventually. Vera's hand stilled. Here it came. The question, the real reason he'd stayed, the curiosity that everyone had but most people were too polite or too afraid to voice. "You can ask," she said carefully. "Can't promise I'll answer." Why blacksmithing? Not the question she'd expected. Why does anyone do anything? I'm good at it. It pays. But how'd you learn blacksmithing isn't exactly something you pick up casually? Vera considered not answering. But something about Callum's tone, genuine interest, without the weight of judgment, made her relent. "My father was a weaponsmith. Learned from him before." She paused. "Before the war. He teach Ember too. He's dead. I'm sorry. You didn't kill Tim. Doesn't mean I can't be sorry." Vera looked at him then, really looked, searching for the catch, the angle, the hidden disdain. She found none of it, just a man who seemed to actually mean what he said. "Your turn," she said. "Why traveling merchant?" "Because staying still makes me restless. Because I like seeing places most people only hear about. Because my wife always wanted to travel, and when she died, I figured I'd travel enough for both of us. That's 3 reasons. I'm an overachiever. How long ago? 3 years. Fever took her in winter. Quick, 1 week she was fine. Next week she was gone." He said it matter-of-factly, the way people talk about old pain that they've made peace with. "No children, just me and Rowan now. He's not yours. Not by blood. Found him about a year ago living rough in the market at Thornhaven. Parents died in a fire. No family willing to take him. So I did. That was kind. That was practical. I needed help with the cart. He needed food and a place to sleep. Trade worked for both of us." But the way he watched Rowan with the protective attention of someone who'd carved out space in their life that had previously been empty said it was more than a trade. The hooks took 2 weeks to complete. Callum visited 4 times during those 2 weeks, always finding some reason to check on progress, always staying longer than necessary. They talked about metalwork and merchant routes, about the war neither of them wanted to fight, about the careful dance of living in a world that was technically at peace, but practically still divided. On the 4th visit, Callum brought sweet rolls from Hilda's stall. "For you and Ember," he said. "Figured you probably skipped lunch when you were working." He was right. She did. They ate together in the courtyard, Ember chattering about dragon aerodynamics, Rowan listening with the intensity of someone taking mental notes. Callum and Vera sitting on opposite ends of the bench, eating in that easy silence that had somehow become their default. "Your daughter's amazing," Callum said quietly, watching Ember demonstrate wing angles with her hands. "She doesn't know enough to be scared yet," Vera replied. "Thinks everyone's a potential friend." Is that such a bad thing? In this world, yes. Maybe she'll make a better world then. Vera wanted to say that was naive, that the world didn't change because children wished it did. That hope was a luxury people like her couldn't afford. Instead, she said nothing, because maybe, just maybe, there was a sliver of truth in what he said. When the hooks were finished, Callum paid in full and added extra. "What's this for?" Vera asked, looking at the extra coins. "Quality work deserves quality pay." "I quoted you fair. And I'm paying you better than fair. Take it or I'll leave it on the bench and you'll have to hunt me down to give it back." Vera took it. "You're a strange man, Callum Ashford." "I get that a lot." He loaded the hooks into his cart, testing each one with weight. "These are perfect, exactly what I needed. They're hooks, not complicated. Maybe, but they're hooks that won't break. That's worth something." He paused, hand on the cart rail. "I'll be in town for another 3 months. If you ever need anything, supplies, materials, just someone to talk to, you know where to find me." It was an offer, not a demand. not an expectation, just an offer. I'll keep that in mind, Vera said. And she did. Over the next month, she found reasons to walk past Callum's stall, checking prices on this or that, asking about materials she might need in the future, bringing Ember to look at fabrics they couldn't afford but could appreciate. Callum never made it weird, never pushed, just greeted them with that same genuine warmth and treated conversations like they were the most natural thing in the world. Ember naturally noticed. "Mama, you smile different when we see Callum," she announced one evening while Vera tucked her into bed. "I do not." "You do, your mouth does the thing." "What thing?" "The happy thing, the same thing you do when you finish a really hard piece." "That's just my face." "Nuh-uh. That's your I like something face. I know all your faces." "You're 5. You don't know all my faces." "I know the important ones." Vera should have changed the subject, should have redirected, should have done anything except what she did, which was absolutely nothing, while her daughter studied her with those two knowing gray eyes. "Do you like Callum?" Ember asked. "He's a customer." "That's not what I asked." "Ember." "It's okay if you like him, Mama. He's nice. He brings us sweet rolls. And he lets me ask questions without getting annoyed. And he has good stories. And sleep," Vera interrupted. "You can list his qualities tomorrow." "So you do like him?" "I like sleep. Go to sleep." Ember giggled, burrowing into her blanket. "Okay, but I'm right." She was. Vera knew it too well, because somewhere between the hooks and the sweet rolls and the quiet conversations, Vera had stopped thinking of Callum as just the merchant in the market. He'd become Callum, the man who made Ember laugh, the man who asked questions because he actually wanted to know the answers, the man who looked at her like she was a person first and an orc second. It was dangerous. It was foolish. It was exactly the kind of thing that got people hurt, but it was also true. The thing about truth is it doesn't care about your plans. It doesn't wait for convenient timing or safe spaces. It just exists, getting heavier every day you try to carry it alone. For Vera, that weight became unbearable on a Tuesday morning in the marketplace. They'd gone for supplies. Flour, salt, nails, the boring necessities that couldn't wait. Ember was in high spirits because Hilda had given her a slightly burned roll before it went to waste. Even slightly burned rolls were exciting when you were 5. Callum's stall was busy, 3 customers examining fabrics, 2 more asking about spices. Rowan was handling the crowd with the frazzled competence of someone who'd learned to manage chaos by necessity. "We should come back later," Vera said, steering Ember away. But Ember had spotted Callum, and more importantly, Callum had spotted them. He smiled, that easy, genuine smile that reached his eyes, raised a hand in greeting. And Ember, with the complete and total lack of social awareness possessed only by children and very drunk people, waved back enthusiastically. Then she shouted loud enough for half the marketplace to hear, "My mama likes you." Time didn't stop. Time never actually stops, but it felt like it did. Felt like every person in the market turned simultaneously. Felt like the air itself held its breath. Vera's mind went blank, completely, utterly blank. The kind of blank where thoughts should be, but there's only static and the distant sound of your life collapsing. Callum's smile froze. Not in disgust, not in horror, just froze. Like he'd been carved from stone mid-expression. The customers at his stall stopped examining fabrics. Hilda stopped muttering prayers. Garrick, the orc elder who'd been loading supplies into a cart near the fountain, went very still. Ember, oblivious to the crater she'd just created in her mother's life, kept waving. "She does. She smiles at you all funny, and she asks me about you, and she—" "Ember," Vera managed to choke out. "Stop talking." "But now," something in Vera's voice penetrated. Ember's mouth clicked shut. Her smile faltered. "Did I say something wrong?" she asked in a smaller voice. Vera couldn't answer because yes, Ember had said something catastrophically wrong. But also no, because it was true, and you couldn't punish a child for telling the truth. "We're leaving," Vera said. She took Ember's hand and walked. Fast. Faster than was probably wise. But stopping would mean facing the stairs. And she couldn't do that. Not now. Not yet. "Vera, wait." That was Callum's voice. Behind her. She didn't turn around. Vera, please. She walked faster. Ember stumbled, trying to keep up. They made it to the forge in record time. Vera's heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. Inside. Door closed, breath coming in sharp gasps that had nothing to do with the pace of walking and everything to do with the fact that her carefully constructed life had just detonated in the middle of the marketplace. Ember started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears. The kind that hurt more because they came from real distress instead of performative upset. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to make you upset. Vera knelt down. Pulled Ember into a hug that was probably too tight, but she couldn't loosen it. I know. You didn't do anything wrong. But you're crying. She was, apparently. Hadn't even noticed the tears until Ember mentioned them. Sometimes adults cry when things are complicated, Vera said. It's not your fault. Do you really like Callum? Yes. Then why is that bad? How do you explain to a 5-year-old that the world has rules written and unwritten, that people can be polite on the surface while harboring sharp edges underneath, that humans and orcs could live in the same town but not in the same lives? You don't, because they're 5, and they shouldn't have to know that yet. It's not bad, Vera said carefully. It's just complicated. Complicated how? Complicated like trying to mix oil and water. They don't naturally go together. But you can mix them if you stir hard enough. I've seen Hilda do it when she makes bread. That's different. Why, plug? Because bread doesn't have feelings about being mixed. Ember thought about this. Do you want to be mixed with Callum? Vera laughed. It came out half sob. It doesn't matter what I want. Why not? Because wanting isn't enough. But oh, she did want. Her chest ached with it. She wanted it so much it hurt. Wanted those easy conversations and shared silences. Wanted someone to eat sweet rolls with. Wanted Ember to have someone who made her laugh. Wanted to not be so desperately, achingly alone in a world that insisted she had to be. She wanted, and wanting was dangerous. There was a knock at the door. Vera's stomach dropped. Don't answer it, she whispered to Ember. Another knock, more insistent. Vera, I know you're in there. Callum's voice. Of course it was. Go upstairs, Vera told Ember. But now, please. Ember fled. Her footsteps echoed on the wooden stairs, then vanished into her room. Vera opened the door. Callum stood there breathing hard, hair messed from running. His cart was nowhere in sight. He'd left it in the market to chase after her. Left his livelihood unattended. For this, for her. I'm sorry, he said immediately. I know that probably made things difficult, and you should go. Vera, please, just go. This was a mistake. What was a mistake? Her telling the truth. Yes, no, this whole thing, all of it. We can't, she gestured helplessly between them. This doesn't work. Why not? You know why not. Spell it out for me. Because I'm orc and you're human, and this town is barely held together by polite fiction, and if people think we're... She couldn't even finish the sentence. It won't end well, for either of us. Callum took a step closer. Not threatening, just closer. Is it true, he asked. Is what true, what Ember said? Do you like me? Every instinct screamed to lie, to deflect, to protect herself the way she'd been protecting herself for 6 years in this town. Yes, she said instead, because apparently her mouth had disconnected from her brain's survival instincts. Callum's expression shifted. Not horror, not disgust, just something soft, something warm. Good, he said, because I like you too. The world tilted, actually tilted. Vera gripped the door frame to keep from swaying. You can't. Little late for that. Callum, I like how you work. I like how you talk to Ember. I like how you don't sugarcoat things, but you're never cruel about it. I like that you eat lunch too fast because you forget to chew when you're thinking. I like that you smell like forge smoke and iron and something else I can't quite place, but makes me want to keep smelling it. He paused. I like you, as a person, who happens to be an orc, in that order. Her chest felt like it was cracking open. The town can deal with it. They won't. Then they won't. But that's their problem, not ours. You don't understand what you're saying. I understand perfectly. I'm saying I like you. I'm saying I want to see where this goes. I'm saying I don't care what color you are or what people think, because I've spent 3 years being lonely and careful, and now I've met someone who makes me laugh, and I'm not going to walk away from that because it's inconvenient. It's more than inconvenient. Okay, it's dangerous. It's difficult. It's probably going to make both our lives harder. But Vera, he looked at her with those eyes that saw through walls. I've been alone for 3 years, and I've been fine with it until I met you. And now I'm not fine with it anymore. And I don't think you're fine with it either. He was right. She knew it, hated it, feared it. What if we try and it falls apart? She asked quietly. Then it falls apart. But at least we tried. What if it gets Ember hurt? What if it gives Ember a chance to see love that crosses boundaries? What if we show her the world can be bigger than the boxes people try to stuff it into? Vera wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons this was a terrible idea, wanted to protect herself and Ember from the inevitable pain. But she was so tired, so desperately, bone-achingly tired of being alone. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Neither do I, but we can figure it out together. People are going to talk. Let them. They're going to stare. I'll stare back. Callum. Vera, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm asking if I can come by for dinner sometime. Maybe bring Rowan. See what happens. That's all. It should have been a small thing, just dinner, but it felt enormous, like standing on the edge of a cliff deciding whether to jump. Thursday, she said before she could stop herself. After the forge closes? Callum smiled. That real, genuine smile that had started this whole mess. Thursday, he agreed. He left. Vera closed the door, leaned against it, tried to process what had just happened. Upstairs, she heard Ember's footsteps. Mama, small voice through the floorboards. Did I ruin everything? No, Vera called back. You might have actually fixed something. She wasn't sure she believed it, but maybe belief came later. Maybe right now she just had to take the first step. And she had. Thursday, dinner, one meal, one chance, one terrifying, impossible, beautiful possibility. Thursday arrived with the weight of a promise made in desperation. Vera cleaned the forge 3 times, changed her tunic twice, braided her hair, unbraided it, braided it again differently. Her hands shook as she worked, not from fear of the forge fire, not from any physical threat, but from the simple, terrifying possibility that tonight might change everything. Or worse, that it might change nothing at all. Ember watched with barely contained glee. You're nervous, she announced from her perch on the workbench. I'm not nervous. Your ears twitch when you're nervous. They do not. They do, and they're twitching right now. Vera forced them to stay still. Ears were not supposed to be that expressive. Evolutionary oversight. Callum arrived exactly on time. He brought bread cheese and a jar of honey that looked expensive. Rowan trailed behind him carrying a basket that clinked promisingly. What's in there? Ember demanded immediately. Patience, Rowan said wisely with the air of someone who'd recently learned patience and wanted everyone to know. Patience is boring. Then prepare to be bored. Just for a minute, though. They ate at the table Vera had built when she'd first moved in. Sturdy, practical, scarred from years of living. Callum and Rowan sat on one side, Vera and Ember on the other, like negotiating teams at a peace treaty, except the treaty was dinner and the terms were whether anyone could remember how to make conversation that didn't revolve around the elephant in the room shaped like cross-species romance. This bread is really good, Callum said eventually. It's Hilda's, Vera replied. She makes good bread. She does. Yes. Silence. Not comfortable. Just silence. Ember sighed dramatically. You're both being weird. Just talk like normal. We are talking normal, Vera protested. No, you're not. You're talking like when Garrick tries to talk to the tax collector. All stiff and careful. She turned to Rowan. Do you have any rocks with you? Rowan brightened immediately. 3 want to see, obviously. They retreated to the corner, blessed nonsense-free zone of children who hadn't yet learned that dinner parties required social navigation. Callum laughed quietly. She's got a point. I'm being weird. We're both being weird. And should we stop? Probably don't know how, though. Start with something easy. Tell me about the forge. When did you know you wanted to be a blacksmith? And just like that, the conversation found its footing. Vera talked about learning from her father, about the satisfaction of taking broken things and making them whole, about how metal was honest, it bent or it broke, but it never lied about what it could handle. Callum talked about traveling, about the year he spent in the southern kingdoms, where it never snowed and people ate fruit for breakfast, about finding Rowan and realizing loneliness wasn't noble, it was just lonely. They talked until the candles burned low, until Ember and Rowan had built an elaborate obstacle course for Rowan's rocks to navigate, until the awkwardness dissolved into something that felt dangerously close to easy. When Callum and Rowan left, he paused in the doorway. "Can we do this again?" he asked. "Yes," Vera said, not carefully, not cautiously, just yes. They did it again and again. Thursday dinners became routine. Callum would bring food, Vera would cook it into something resembling an actual meal. Rowan and Ember would build increasingly complex games in the corner. The town noticed? Of course the town noticed. Cedar Falls was too small for secrets and too bored for discretion. Hilda cornered Vera in the market the second week. "You know what you're doing?" the old baker asked. Her hands were white with flour, her eyes sharp as broken glass. "Making business decisions," Vera said flatly. "That's not business. That's something else. Then it's something else. Still not your concern." Hilda studied her with those eyes that had seen too much to be shocked anymore. "You really like him." "Is that a question?" "Statement. You get this look, like you're surprised the world didn't end." She paused. "He looks at you the same way. And you're saying this because I'm old and bitter, and I've watched too many people waste chances they'll never get back. War took my son. Fever took his wife. You think I don't know about losing things?" She shook her head. "If you've found something good in this mess of a world, hold on to it. Everyone else's opinions can go rot." It was the closest thing to a blessing Vera had ever received from a human in Cedar Falls. But Hilda was the exception. Most people weren't so generous. Conversations stopped when Vera walked past. Stares lasted too long. The polite fiction of tolerance began fraying at the edges like old rope under too much weight. Then Garrett came to the forge. He arrived on a Monday morning, early, before the sun had properly cleared the mountains. Vera was stoking the forge fire when his shadow fell across the doorway. Garrett was older than Vera by 20 years, gray threading through his black hair, scars mapping his face from a life spent surviving things that should have killed him. He was the only other orc who'd settled in Cedar Falls, the only one who understood what it meant to build a life in a place that would never fully want you. "We need to talk," he said. Vera didn't stop working. "So talk. You're making a mistake." "Which mistake would that be?" "I make several daily." "The human, the merchant." "His name is Callum." "I don't care what his name is. He's human. You're orc. Humans don't mix with orcs. They tolerate us. That's different from accepting on us." Vera finally looked up. "Maybe." "Not maybe. Definitely." Garrick stepped into the forge. His presence filled the space like smoke. "You think he'll stick around when things get hard? When his human friends start asking questions? When your daughter gets called names in the street because her mother chose a human? Ember already gets called names. This will make it worse. Or it'll make it better. Give her a different future to believe in." "You're being naive." "I'm being hopeful. That's different. Hope's a luxury. We can't afford luxuries." Vera set down her hammer, turned to face him fully. "Then maybe we've been poor too long." Garrick's jaw tightened. "I came here as a friend. To warn you. The community, our community, they're talking. They think you're choosing them over us." "I'm not choosing anyone over anyone. I'm just choosing to be happy for once in 6 years." "At what cost?" "I don't know yet, but I'm tired of being afraid to find out." Garrick stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. But the weight of his concerns stayed. The weight of everyone's concerns stayed. And then the real problems began. Johnson's Hardware had been Vera's biggest client for 4 years. They bought tools, hinges, brackets, anything metal that needed making. It was steady work, reliable income, the foundation that kept the forge profitable. Samuel Johnson came to the forge on a Wednesday, hat in hand, eyes not quite meeting hers. "I'm sorry, Vera," he said, "but I can't keep doing business with you." The words hit like a hammer blow. "Why not?" "People are talking about you and that merchant. My wife says if I keep buying from you, we'll lose customers. She says people won't shop at a store that supports—" He trailed off. Couldn't even finish the sentence. "Supports what? An orc who does good work. You know what I mean. Say it. If you're going to win my livelihood, at least have the courage to say why." Johnson's face reddened. "I'm sorry, I really am, but I have a family to think about." "So do I." He left, took his business elsewhere, took 40% of Vera's income with him. That night, Vera sat at her work table with the ledger open. Numbers that didn't add up anymore. Expenses that wouldn't stop. A forge that suddenly looked like it might not survive the winter. Ember was asleep upstairs. The forge fire had burned down to coals. The building was quiet except for the sound of Vera's own breathing and the scratch of her pen as she tried to make the numbers work through sheer force of will. They didn't work, no matter how she arranged them. Callum found her there at midnight. He'd knocked, but she hadn't heard. Finally let himself in when she didn't answer. "Vera," she looked up, realized her face was wet. When had she started crying? What happened? He crossed to her in 3 strides. "Johnson canceled his contract." "Why what?" "Because of us, because people are talking and he's afraid of losing business." Callum's face darkened. "How much did you lose?" "Enough that I might not make it through winter." "I can help. I have money saved." "No." The word came out sharper than she meant. "No, I built this with my hands. I'll save it the same way." "Vera, I don't need charity. I need work. I need to be so good that people can't afford not to hire me." She stood up, paced, energy crackling through her like lightning. "I'll take smaller jobs, work longer hours. I'll make pieces so perfect they can't be ignored. You'll work yourself to death. Then I'll die doing what I love instead of giving up." She meant it, every word. For the next 3 weeks, Vera worked 18-hour days, took every commission she could find no matter how small, fixed broken tools, repaired wagon wheels, made hinges for a penny profit. But she also made something else. Late at night after Ember was asleep, Vera worked on her masterpiece. A gate, 10 feet tall, wrought iron twisted into patterns that told a story. Leaves and vines interweaving with geometric precision, a rising sun at the top, roots spreading at the bottom. It took every skill she'd ever learned, every technique her father had taught her. She poured her frustration into it, her fear, her desperate hope that excellence might matter more than prejudice. When it was finished, she loaded it onto a borrowed cart, hauled it to the center of Cedar Falls, to Town Hall. She set it up in front of the building at dawn, before anyone was awake to stop her. A gift, unsolicited, undeniable. By the time the sun rose, a crowd had gathered. Sheriff Daniels arrived first. He was a weathered man, late 50s, with silver in his beard and eyes that had seen enough to know when to be impressed. He walked around the gate slowly, touched the metalwork with careful fingers, tested the weight, the balance, the joints. "This is the finest work I've seen in 30 years, he said finally. "It's a gift," Vera replied. "To the town that gave me a chance." Margaret Hale arrived next. The council leader, a woman with iron gray hair and a spine to match. She looked at the gate, then at Vera. Her expression revealed nothing. "We didn't commission this." "I know. But you need a new gate. This one's better than the old one. Take it or don't. I've already made it." Other people gathered, murmuring, some admiring, some resentful that they had to admit an orc had created something beautiful. The gate stood there for 3 days while the council debated. Finally, they voted to install it, not unanimously, but enough. Vera had bought herself time. Respect through competence. It wasn't acceptance, but it was a foothold. Then the rock came through her window. It happened on a Tuesday night. Vera and Ember were eating dinner when glass exploded inward. The rock landed on the table between them, a note tied around it with rough twine. Ember screamed. Vera grabbed her, pulling her away from the broken glass. The girl's hand was bleeding, a small cut from a flying shard. Vera's vision went red. The note said, "Orc lover, leave or we'll make you." She bandaged Ember's hand, put her to bed. Told her everything would be okay even though she wasn't sure it would be. Then she went hunting. It didn't take long to figure out who'd done it. Cedar Falls was small. People talked. Within an hour, 3 different people had mentioned Thomas Beck, a young man early 20s who'd been vocal about orcs not belonging. Vera found him at his workshop on the edge of town. He worked leather, made saddles and harnesses. Good work from what she'd heard. He looked up when she walked in. Surprise flickered across his face, then defiance. "What do you want? You threw a rock through my window. Don't know what you're talking about. My daughter was cut. She's 5 years old. You hurt a child because you don't like who her mother spends time with." Thomas stood up. He was taller than Vera, broader, but she'd survived a war. She'd buried her father. She'd built a life from nothing. She didn't scare easy. "You don't belong here," he said. "You and that human acting like it's normal. It's not normal. It's disgusting." "You know what's disgusting? Attacking a child. You want to come after me? Fine. But you leave Ember out of this." "Or what?" Vera stepped closer, close enough that he could see the scars on her hands, the calluses, the evidence of a life spent working metal and fire. "Or you'll find out what happens when you threaten what I love. You threw a rock. I build things that last. Who do you think is stronger?" A flicker of uncertainty crossed his face. "This isn't over," he muttered. "Yes, it is. Because if you come near my home or my daughter again, I won't call the sheriff. I'll handle it myself, and trust me, you don't want that." She left, went home, boarded up the broken window. Callum arrived an hour later. He'd heard what happened. The whole town had heard. He wanted to go confront Thomas himself. Vera stopped him. "I already did." Did he confess? Didn't have to. He knew I knew. "That's enough, Vera. I don't need you to fight my battles. I need you to be here when they're over." He understood, or at least he tried to, but the attacks didn't stop. They just got more sophisticated. 2 weeks later, Vera received a summons to appear before the town council. Official letterhead, formal language. The kind of notice that meant real trouble. She went alone, told Callum to stay with Ember. This was hers to handle. The council met in the town hall, the same building that now bore her gate. 6 council members sat in a semicircle. Margaret Hale in the center. "Miss Ironheart," Hale began, "we've received complaints about inappropriate relationships." "Inappropriate how?" "You're an orc, living among humans. Under the terms of the peace treaty, those terms include respecting community standards. I pay my taxes, I follow your laws, I contribute to this community. What standard am I violating? The standard of decency, of maintaining proper boundaries between races." Vera's hands clenched. "The treaty says orcs can live in human settlements. It doesn't say we have to be lonely while we do it. It also gives us the right to review residency permits if we determine that a resident is corrupting community values. Corrupting by falling in love, by flaunting it, by making a spectacle, by forcing decent people to witness what 2 people having dinner, a merchant and a blacksmith talking. Where exactly is the corruption?" Margaret Hale's face hardened. "We're giving you 30 days to adjust your situation. If you can't adhere to community values, perhaps Cedar Falls isn't the right place for you." The threat was clear. Stop seeing Callum or lose everything. The forge, the home, custody of Ember. Vera stood up. "I've lived here for 6 years. In that time, I've equipped 40% of the farms in this valley. I've repaired your infrastructure. I've paid more in taxes than half the people in this room. The gate you just installed, that's mine. Free, because I believe this town was worth investing in." She pulled out a ledger, set it on the table. "This is the economic impact of my forge. Every tool I've made, every repair I've done. Add it up, then tell me again how I'm not valuable to this community." Sheriff Daniels leaned forward, examined the ledger. His eyebrows rose. "This is accurate. Every entry, every transaction, 6 years of records." Hale looked uncomfortable. "This isn't about your work." "Yes, it is, because if you kick me out, you lose your best metal worker. And good luck finding another one willing to work for fair prices in a town this size." Vera looked at each council member in turn. "I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for the same right every human has. To work. to live, to build a life. And if you can't give me that, then this town isn't what I thought it was. Yes, she left before they could respond. Outside, she found Callum waiting. He'd come anyway, ignored her request to stay away. How did it go? They gave me 30 days to adjust my situation. What does that mean? It means stop seeing you or leave. Callum's jaw tightened. What are you going to do? This was the moment, the decision point. Safety or happiness, security or hope. Vera looked at him, at this man who'd shown up, who'd stayed, who looked at her like she was worth the trouble. I'm going to fight, she said. I'm going to show this town that I'm not going anywhere, that we're not going anywhere. How do you call him? I don't know yet, but I'm done hiding. I'm done apologizing for existing, for wanting, for being happy. She took his hand, first time she'd done that in public. I spent 6 years making myself small, being grateful for scraps. Not anymore. Callum squeezed her hand. What do you need from me? Just don't give up on us. Never. That night, Callum brought something to the forge. 2 packages wrapped in cloth. Open them, he said. The first package held fabric, blue silk, the same shade as clear sky at midday, soft as clouds, the kind of beautiful thing Vera had looked at but never touched. Callum, I remembered. You said you liked it, but it cost too much, so I saved some from my next shipment. I can't accept this. Why not? It's too much. It's fabric that I paid for with money I earned, which I'm now giving to you because I want to. The second package held something metal. Small, delicate, a brooch shaped like 2 hands clasped together, one larger, one smaller. You made this, Callum said. About a month ago, I saw it on your work table and asked if I could buy it. You said it wasn't for sale, so I waited until you weren't looking and borrowed it. Had the jeweler in the next town add a catch to the back so it could hold fabric. He demonstrated, pinning the blue silk to the brooch. The effect was stunning, rough metal and delicate fabric, joined together into something more beautiful than either part alone. I wanted to give you something that showed, he paused, that showed what this could be. Different things working together, making something new. Vera couldn't speak. Her throat had closed completely. Mama, Ember's voice from the stairs. Are you okay? Vera tried. Couldn't. Callum looked worried. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset. I'm not upset, her voice cracked. I'm crying because this is the kindest thing anyone's ever given me, and I don't know what to do with kindness. The words came out in a rush. I've spent 6 years here being tolerated, being the orc who fixes things, being good enough to take coin from, but not good enough to eat with. And you show up and you act like I'm just a person, like being orc is just one thing about me instead of the only thing. And I don't know how to accept that someone could actually see me and not just what I am. Callum reached across the space between them, took her hand, the rough, calloused hand that smelled of forged smoke and iron, held it like it was something precious. I see you, he said quietly. Vera, blacksmith, mother, person who eats too fast and works too hard and laughs like she's surprised the sound came out. I see you, all of you, and what I see is someone I want to keep seeing. The town can learn to deal with it because I'm not walking away. Not from you, not from Ember, not from this. Vera looked down at the brooch in her hand, 2 hands clasped together, different but joined. I'm going to fight, she said again. Stronger this time. Tomorrow I'm going to show them I'm not afraid anymore. What are you going to do? I'm going to stop hiding. I'm going to work with the forge doors open. I'm going to walk through town with my head up. I'm going to show them that competence matters more than comfort, that I earned my place here. She pinned the brooch to her tunic, right over her heart. And I'm going to do it wearing this, so everyone knows exactly where I stand. Callum smiled, not with relief, not with victory, but with something that looked like pride. Then I'll stand with you. They'll come after you too. Let them try. And they stood together in the forge, the fire burning low, Ember watching from the stairs with wide gray eyes that were learning what courage looked like. Tomorrow would bring more trouble, more resistance, more people who would never accept them. But tonight Vera Ironheart made a choice. not to hide, not to compromise, not to make herself smaller so others could feel bigger. Tonight she chose to fight, and the forge fire burned a little brighter for it. The next morning, Vera opened the forge doors wide, not just cracked for ventilation, not just enough to let the smoke out. Wide, fully open, so anyone walking past could see inside, could watch her work, could witness exactly what she was capable of. She pinned the brooch to her tunic, blue silk and joined hands catching the early light. Then she went to work. Her hammer struck with purpose, each blow deliberate, each piece she made a declaration. She wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't apologizing, wasn't making herself smaller so others could feel comfortable. People walked by, slowed, stared, some with curiosity, some with hostility, some with something that might have been grudging respect. Vera didn't stop working, didn't acknowledge the stares, just kept her head down and her hammer swinging and let the work speak for itself. By noon, a small crowd had gathered, watching, whispering. On the third day, Vera made her decision. She loaded her portable anvil onto a cart, gathered her tools, her best work, pieces that showed what she could do. Then she wheeled everything to town square, set up next to the fountain, right in the center, where everyone would see. By mid-morning, a crowd had gathered, curious, uncertain, some hostile. Vera didn't acknowledge them, just lit her portable forge, let the fire build, pulled out a piece of iron and began to work. Metal rang against her anvil, each strike precise. She was making a bracket, decorative but functional, the kind of piece that required skill and artistry combined. People watched, some grudgingly impressed, others resentful that they had to admit an orc knew her craft. "Why are you doing this?" someone called out. Vera finished the strike, examined the metal, plunged it into water. The hiss filled the square. "Because I want you to see what I do," she said. Not loud, not aggressive, just matter of fact. "I want you to watch me work, to understand that this," she gestured to the bracket perfect in its curves, "is what I bring to Cedar Falls." She pulled the metal out, began shaping again. "I've been here 6 years. I've followed every rule, paid every tax, made myself small so you'd be comfortable." Her hammer struck true. "I'm done with that. Strike, turn, strike. I'm Vera Ironheart. I'm an orc. I'm a blacksmith. I'm a mother. I'm in love." She looked up then, met eyes around the circle. "And I'm staying." Silence. Then Sheriff Daniels stepped forward, examined the bracket she'd made. "Finest work in the valley," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. Not everyone agreed. Some people turned away, muttered, left, but others stayed, watched her finish. Some even nodded respect when she was done. It wasn't acceptance, but it was acknowledgement, and that was a start. Ember had watched from the edge of the crowd. Now she ran forward, helped Vera pack the tools. "That was brave, Mama." "That was necessary," Vera corrected. "There's a difference." But Callum, standing near the fountain, smiled in a way that said he understood. This had been the moment. The line drawn, the declaration made. Vera Ironheart wasn't hiding anymore. The 30 days passed slowly, each day marked by small victories and smaller defeats. A new client here, a cold shoulder there. Progress measured in inches. Callum stood by her through all of it, not fighting her battles, just being present. His cart became a fixture outside the forge, his presence a statement that he wasn't going anywhere. On the 28th day, Vera received a summons to appear before the town council again. She went. Same room, same semicircle of faces, but this time Sheriff Daniels sat in the audience. So did Hilda. So did 3 other business owners who'd worked with Bertha Vera over the years. Margaret Hale looked less certain than before. "Miss Ironheart," she began, "we've reviewed your situation. And the council has voted on your residency status." Vera's heart hammered. Everything balanced on this moment. 6 years of work, Ember's future, the life they'd built. The vote was 6-3 in favor of maintaining your residency. Relief crashed through Vera like a wave. Not unanimous, but enough. "However," Hale continued, her voice tight, "this decision comes with the understanding that you will continue to contribute to this community in meaningful ways. I've never done anything else. Then we have no further issues. It wasn't acceptance. It wasn't approval, but it was permission to stay, to exist, to build. Vera stood. Thank you. She meant it, even though it shouldn't require gratitude to simply live, even though it burned that she had to earn what others received by birth. She meant it. Outside, Callum was waiting. He searched her face. 6-3, she said. He exhaled. You're staying. I'm staying. Then we can talk about the future now. What future? Ours, yours and mine, and Ember's and Rowan's. The one where we stop fighting just to exist and start building something that lasts. Vera looked at him, at this man who'd stood beside her through every attack, every threat, every moment when giving up would have been easier. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to wake up next to you every morning. I'm saying I want to teach Ember about the world and learn from her in return. I'm saying I want to build a life that's bigger than what either of us could make alone. He took her hand. I'm saying, marry me, Vera Ironheart. Let me be part of what you're building here. The proposal wasn't elaborate. No grand gesture, no audience, just two people standing outside a government building asking each other to be brave enough to build something together. You're insane, Vera said. Is that a no? It's so you understand what you're asking. I'm asking you to be my wife, to let me be Ember's father, to build a life that's probably going to be harder than if we'd chosen safer options. But I don't want safe, I want you. The town just gave us permission to stay. That's their answer. Now I need yours. Vera looked at the brooch pinned over her heart, two hands clasped together. Different, but joined. Strong because of it. Yes, she said. Let's be foolish properly. They married in the spring. Small ceremony. Intimate. Just the people who mattered. The ones who'd stood by them or come around eventually. Hilda attended grumbling about wasting a perfectly good morning, but bringing bread that could have fed an army. Sheriff Daniels came standing quiet in the back, but present. A statement. Garrick showed up, late, stood in the doorway with his arms crossed and his expression carefully neutral. But he was there, and that mattered. Rowan stood as Callum's witness, nervous hands going to his pocket where he kept his favorite rock. Ember held the rings, wore purple, practically vibrated with excitement. They held the ceremony at the forge, the place Vera had built, the foundation of everything that came after. The vows were simple, honest, not about eternal romance or perfect love, about choosing each other every day, about building something strong enough to weather the storms that would come. I don't need you to save me, Vera said, her voice steady. I need you beside me. I don't need you to be anything other than who you are, Callum replied. I just need you to let me love all of it. When they kissed, Ember cheered loud enough to wake the dead. You're both my parents now, she announced to anyone within earshot. Callum knelt down, eye level with the girl who'd started all of this with 3 shouted words in a marketplace. Is that okay with you? Obviously, your family have been for a while. We're just making it official. From the mouth of a 5-year-old, perfect clarity. The reception was small, bread and cheese and honey. Rowan taught Ember a card trick. Garrick approached Vera, handed her a carved wooden toy. For the girl, he said gruffly, you proved me wrong. That takes guts. You doubted me. I doubted everyone, still do mostly, but you made me wrong. I respect that. It wasn't friendship, but it was respect. Sometimes that mattered more. Life settled into a new rhythm. Callum moved into the forge. They expanded the living quarters, made space for 4 instead of 2. Vera worked, Callum traveled. They built a life that balanced independence with partnership. Neither one swallowed by the other. Both stronger for the joining. 14 months after the wedding, Vera gave birth to a son. The labor was hard, longer than with Ember, but when it was done, she held a baby boy with green skin and brown eyes. Half orc, half human, completely theirs. They named him Ashton, for the ash of the forge fire, for new things born from heat and pressure. Ember was 7 now, old enough to help, to hold her baby brother with careful hands and sing him songs about dragons and mice. Rowan, 17 and nearly grown, carved a cradle, spent 3 weeks getting it perfect, presented it like a knight presenting a sword. The town's reaction was mixed. Some families visited with gifts, Small acknowledgments. Others stayed away, drew their boundaries clearer. But enough people came. Enough kindness existed. Enough hope remained that maybe slowly things were changing. Vera didn't slow down, adapted the forge for safety, built barriers to keep Ashton away from the fire, worked while he napped, nursed him during breaks, refused to choose between motherhood and her craft. The business expanded. Word of her work spread. Orders came from other towns, other valleys, people who didn't know she was Orc, didn't care, just wanted quality metalwork. She hired an apprentice, a human boy 15 whose father had lost his forge in a fire. The boy was nervous at first, uncertain about learning from an Orc. By the end of the first month, he was calling her Master Vera with genuine respect. 2 years later, Briar was born. A girl, appearing fully human, blonde hair like Callum's mother, green eyes that held echoes of Vera's. The strength of Orc bloodline running through veins that showed none of the visible markers. Ember was 9, Ashton was 2. The family grew, the forge thrived. Life continued with its mixture of joy and struggle and the hard-won peace of people who'd fought for their right to exist together. The years passed, not easily, not perfectly, but they passed. Ashton grew strong, started learning the forge at 6, had his mother's hands and his father's patience. By 9, he could shape basic tools. By 10, he was helping with commissions. Briar inherited Vera's business sense and Callum's charm. At 7, she was already negotiating better deals than most adults. Sharp, quick, understanding instinctively that words could be as powerful as hammers. Rowan left eventually, started his own merchant route, specializing in metalwork from Vera's forge, carrying the lesson of their family into new places, new towns, spreading the quiet revolution of proving that different didn't mean impossible. More mixed families moved to Cedar Falls. Slowly, one by one, citing Vera's example, her success, the proof that it could be done. The town changed, not overnight, not completely, but enough. Enough that Ember could walk through the marketplace without constant stares. Enough that Ashton could play with human children without their parents pulling them away. Enough that Briar could be herself without apology. Margaret Hale retired. The new council had different priorities, different perspectives. They appointed Vera to the Business Advisory Board, first Orc in any official capacity. She accepted, because representation mattered, because the next generation needed to see what was possible. 6 years after Briar was born, Ember turned 15. She'd been apprenticing at the forge for 2 years, had her mother's talent, her father's patience, a work ethic that came from watching Vera fight for every inch of ground she'd gained. The school asked Ember to give a presentation about metalworking, about craft, about family. Vera sat in the audience, Callum beside her, Ashton and Briar squirming in their seats, waiting to see their sister shine. Ember stood at the front of the room, 15 years old, green skin, gray eyes, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who'd grown up watching her mother refuse to be small. 10 years ago, Ember began, I shouted something in the marketplace, 3 words that changed my family's life. Soft laughter from the audience. Everyone in Cedar Falls knew the story by now. It had become legend, cautionary tale or inspiration depending on who told it. I told everyone my mama liked someone, and I was right, but that's not the important part. Ember pulled out something wrapped in cloth, unwrapped it carefully, revealed a brooch, shaped like 2 hands clasped together, one larger, one smaller. This is the first masterwork I ever made. It took me 3 months. I messed it up 7 times before I got it right. My mama helped me, taught me that precision matters, that patience matters, that doing something right is more important than doing something fast. She held up the brooch. Let the light catch it. But she taught me something else too, something that mattered more than metalworking. Ember's eyes found Vera in the audience. She taught me that strength isn't about muscles. It's about standing up when it's easier to hide. She taught me that love isn't about convenience. It's about choosing someone every day, even when the world tells you not to. She taught me that different isn't weakness. It's power waiting to be forged. The room was completely silent. My mama is the strongest person I know, not because she survived a war, not because she built a forge from nothing, but because she chose to be happy in a world that tried to make her feel guilty for wanting. Ember's voice caught. She stood up, and because she did, I never had to hide. Vera was crying, didn't try to stop it. Let the tears fall while her daughter spoke truth to a room full of people who'd once whispered about them in markets. So when people ask me what I learned from my mama, I don't talk about metalworking. I talk about courage, about building things that last, about refusing to let fear make you small. Ember held up the brooch one more time. This represents two different things joined together, making something stronger than either part alone. That's not just metalwork. That's family. That's love. That's what my mama gave me. She sat down. The room erupted in applause. Afterward, Ember found Vera outside the school, threw her arms around her mother and held on tight. "Did I do okay?" she asked. "You did more than okay. You told our story better than I ever could. It's a good story, but it's our story. That makes it the best one." They walked home together, mother and daughter, past the marketplace where it all started, past Callum's old stall location, past the faces that had once been hostile and were now mostly neutral and sometimes even kind. Back to the forge, where Ashton was practicing hammer strikes under Callum's supervision, where Briar was organizing the ledgers with terrifying efficiency for a 7-year-old, where home was. That evening, Vera stood in the doorway watching her family, Callum helping Ashton with his grip, Ember showing Briar how to sketch patterns, the forge fire burning steady. 10 years ago, she'd been terrified of being seen, of wanting, of hoping. Now she was the head of a family that shouldn't exist according to the rules written by people who'd never had to fight for belonging. But they did exist. They thrived. And every day they proved that the impossible was just the unlived. Callum found her standing there, put his arm around her shoulders. "You okay?" Just thinking about that first day in the marketplace, when Ember shouted. She had no chill at 5, still doesn't at 15. No, but she was right. "I did like you. I do like you." Vera leaned into him. "I love you. I love you too." Still pound. Always. They stood together as the sun set over Cedar Falls, a town that had learned to hold space for love that didn't fit into easy categories. A town that would never be perfect, but had managed to be good enough. Inside, children argued about bedtime. Ashton claimed he wasn't tired despite yawning every 30 seconds. Briar insisted she needed to hear one more story. Ember was trying to explain geometry using kitchen implements. Normal case. Beautiful case. The chaos of a family that chose itself. "We did it," Vera whispered. "Did what?" "Made something impossible." Impossible's just another word for nobody tried hard enough yet. Vera smiled, touched the brooch pinned to her tunic, the one Callum had given her all those years ago. Two hands clasped together, different metals, different origins, joined into something stronger than either part alone. The forge smoke rose into the evening sky. 10 years after a 5-year-old girl shouted 3 words in a marketplace, Vera Ironheart stood in her doorway watching her family, the master blacksmith, the wife, the mother, the woman who'd proven that different didn't mean impossible. Years later, Ember would tell their story to her own apprentices. How courage wasn't about never being afraid. It was about building something beautiful anyway. How her mama had come to Cedar Falls with nothing but a daughter and a hammer, and built a forge, a business, a family, a legacy. How she'd proven that excellence could overcome prejudice, that love could cross boundaries, that one woman's refusal to be small could change a town's understanding of what was possible. And they were perfect.